first grade. So when we left off yesterday, Ribsy had taken his package of horse meat. I guess that's what they used to feed dogs. Ugh. And had taken off running with it. And Henry was chasing him with his guppies, his little baby fish, in a bowl. And was trying to get the meat from Ribsy and not spill all the water out of his fish bowl. And I made a prediction that it wasn't going to end well for Henry, it wasn't going to end well for Ribsy, and it really wasn't going to end well for those fish. So let's read and find out what happens today. "You let go of that meat," Ribsy growled more fiercely. He sounded as if he meant it. The harder Henry pulled, the louder Ribsy growled. Henry was sure Ribsy wouldn't really bite him, but just the same, he knew it was not a good idea to annoy any animal when it was eating. Anyway, he couldn't stand there all afternoon playing tug-of-war with a piece of horse meat. His guppies might get cold. "Oh, all right, you old dog. Go ahead and eat it and see if I care. You'll just have to eat canned dog food for the rest of the week." He went back to his guppies while Ribsy wolfed the rest of the meat, licked his chops, and then, with his stomach bulging, followed slowly at Henry's heels the rest of the way home. When they reached Henry's house on Klickitat Street, Henry opened the door and yelled, "Hey, Mom, come and see what I bought with the silver dollar Grandpa gave me." "I'm afraid to look," answered his mother from the kitchen. "What is it this time?" "Fish." "Fish?" Mrs. Huggins sounded surprised. "Did you want me to cook it for dinner?" Henry carried his package into the kitchen. "Oh, no, Mom, you don't understand. Not dead fish. Live fish swimming around in a bowl of water. They're called guppies." "Guppies?" "Yes, just 2 little fish. I'll keep them on my dresser and they won't be any trouble at all. They were on sale at the pet shop. They were a bargain. See, Mom?" Henry gently lifted the fishbowl out of the bag. Mrs. Huggins put down the potatoes she was peeling. "Why, Henry, what pretty little fish." "I thought you'd like them." Henry was pleased, but his mother bent closer to the fishbowl. "But Henry, what are those little dark things in the water?" "What little dark things?" Henry looked closer. "Why, they're baby fish," Mrs. Huggins exclaimed. "There must be 15 or 20. "Baby guppies?" Henry was delighted. "Look, Mom, did you ever see such teeny weeny little fish? Oh, golly, they're so little, just about all you can see are their eyes and their tails." Mrs. Huggins sighed. "Henry, I'm afraid they won't be teeny weeny little fish very long. They'll grow, and then what are you going to do with them?" "I don't know. I'll ask Dad." Henry was worried. Maybe he knows about baby guppies. But when Mr. Huggins came back home from work, Henry was disappointed to learn that he knew nothing about little guppies. "Why don't you get a book about guppies from the library?" he suggested. Mrs. Huggins said there would be time before dinner, so Henry found his library card, and he and Ribsy ran all the way to the library. "Hello, Henry," said the lady in the boys' and girls' room at the library. "Have you come for another book about giants and ogres?" This was a joke between the librarian and Henry. When Henry had first started reading fairy tales by himself, he returned the book and asked for another about Genats and Ogras. He felt a little silly about it now, because he had pronounced it wrong, I guess. He felt a little silly about it now, although he secretly thought that it sounded better than giants and ogres. "No, I want a book about guppies," Henry answered. "I have some baby guppies, and I don't know how to take care of them." The librarian found a book on hobbies with a chapter on fish, but did not tell much about guppies. "Just a minute, Henry," she said. "Maybe there's something in the adult room." She returned with a thick book about tropical fish. It was full of colored pictures. "I'm sure this will help you," she said, "but I'm afraid it's too hard for you to read. I'll let you take it out on your card if you think your mother and father will help you with it." "Sure, my dad will help me." The librarian stamped the book on his card, and Henry, proud to have a grown-up book stamped on his library card, ran home with it. After dinner, Mr. Huggins sat down to read the fish book while Henry went to his room to watch his guppies. This time he counted 38 babies. After a while, his father came in with the book in his hand. "This is a mighty interesting book, Henry, but you're going to need some more fish bowls. According to this book, you can't keep so many fish in one bowl." "Well, but Dad, where will I get more bowls?" "Maybe we can find something in the basement." So Henry and his father rummaged through the basement until they found a gallon jar Mrs. Huggins used for making dill pickles. "This should do," said Mr. Huggins. They carried it upstairs and washed it. Mr. Huggins filled it with hot water and carried it into Henry's room. "Now, when the water cools, we can move some of the little guppies. They can't live in cold water right out of the faucet. They need hot water that has stood and cooled. While it's cooling, we can make a net. He found a piece of wire and bent it into a circle. Mrs. Huggins took an old stocking and sewed it to the wire to make a little fish net. Henry and his father took turns catching the tiny fish with the net and moving them into the pickle jar. Henry was surprised that such small fish could swim so fast. The next day and every day after that, Henry looked at his guppies the first thing in the morning. When he came home from school, he looked at his guppies before he went into the kitchen for something to eat. His fish grew and grew. As the weeks passed, the big guppies had more little guppies. The little guppies grew up to be big guppies and had little guppies of their own. Henry had hundreds of guppies. He couldn't find any more pickle jars, so he started using his mother's quart fruit jars. He couldn't keep many fish in a quart of water. Henry had jars on his dresser. He had them on the table by his bed. He put jars on the floor all around the edge of his room. When he had one row of jars all the way around the floor, he started another row. "Goodness, Henry," his mother said. "Pretty soon you won't be able to walk in here." "If you keep all your guppies," said his father, "by the end of the year you'll have over 1,000,000 fish in your bedroom." "Golly," said Henry, 1,000,000 fish in my bedroom. Wouldn't that be something to tell the kids at school? So what do you think Henry's going to do with his fish? Because there's just more and more and more every time he goes into his room. So we'll have to hear tomorrow maybe what he does with his fish.